This is Weekend Connection. Weekend Connection is a public affairs program from the Bible Broadcasting Network. It's heard every Saturday at this time. As you listen to Weekend Connection, you'll hear interviews with people of interest to you, with information that is important to you. And now, let's get connected. Our guest today on Weekend Connection is Chuck Bentley. Chuck is CEO of Crown Financial Ministries. And you also hear Chuck on My Money Life, Monday through Fridays at 6:02 p.m. Eastern, here on BBN. Chuck brings us biblical truth and practical financial advice to encourage us in our stewardship. Chuck, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Hank. It's such a privilege to be on with you. I really am honored by the invitation.
Chuck, how long have you been at Crown Financial, and what brought you there?
I started actually in 2000. The genesis of my journey here started with participating in a Crown Bible study in my local church. I had my life impacted there and really sensed that the Lord wanted me to help share God's principles with other people. So I started volunteering in my local church, and ultimately I joined staff in Texas and then ended up on staff at the national office. And unbeknownst to me, Larry Burkett asked the board to consider me for the CEO job after he passed away.
Our longtime listeners will remember Larry Burkett and how to manage your money. And the current program, My Money Life, just sort of grew out of that, how to manage your money, I suppose, correct?
Yes, we did a call-in feature program for many years. And as a part of that, we had a smaller feature program that remains on the air today in more than 1,200 stations across the country and in many parts of the world. So we're very pleased to be able to continue to bring God's financial principles to his people through the air.
Chuck Bentley, Chief Executive Officer of Crown Financial Ministries. Chuck, what are people asking you about the current financial crisis, and what are you telling them?
Well, we're getting lots of questions right now, predominantly about their personal finances. What I decided to do, Hank, was to pull my children together and give them some advice, as well as my staff. And so I've written down 7 steps that I've shared with them and have been open about sharing it with other people when they call and ask. And I'll run through those 7 steps rather quickly and then pause and let you clarify anything that doesn't make sense to you, Hank.
Sure, let's go ahead and hear them.
Well, first of all, I recommend that we cut back our expenses or our spending just so that we're prepared for anything that might come up. So cut back on the spending is number 1. Number 2 is increase savings as quickly as possible. I particularly recommend that if they don't have $1,000 in their emergency savings account, they definitely need that going forward. And by cutting back on your spending, which many of us have already had to do, we need to build up our emergency savings account so that we've got financial margin for the difficult days ahead. And then number 3, to be sacrificially generous. I think that this is a time where if it were a flood or a fire or a tsunami or an earthquake or a tornado, we would be responding very, very generously. And I'm calling on God's people to be sacrificially generous, even though it may be frightening and your own future may be unsure. It's time to give. That's what the apostles recommended in the book of Acts when Agabus said a great famine is coming. They got together and decided to give, and that separates the church from the world. And then next is it's time to talk to your children about their financial habits. You know, children drive a lot of our spending. They drive a lot of our budget decisions. And they need to understand reality right now that job markets are going to be difficult. Getting the things that they maybe have had easy access to in the past may not be in the future. And so we need to use this time to train our children on better financial habits. Also, if you lose your job, it's time to be flexible and realize that God can provide something maybe even better than what you've lost. And I've written quite extensively for people who've lost their job. Number 6, invite God to help you. And then finally, use your time wisely. Investing in yourself and learning God's financial principles and how to apply those would be a really good use of time. So that's my top 7, Hank.
Chuck, I think most of us have heard all of our lives when it comes to investing, invest for the long term. Would you still say invest for the long term or the short term? What would you say to that?
Well, the long term always wins. That's the tortoise and the hare illustration. The one that's going quick usually makes the most mistakes and wears out faster. When it comes to investing, the Bible advises us to be diversified. It advises us to be wise, to know what we're investing in, and to think long term. We're not to have a get rich quick attitude.
Talking with Chuck Bentley, Chief Executive Officer of Crown Financial Ministries and the voice of My Money Life, which you hear Monday through Fridays here on the Bible Broadcasting Network. Chuck, I know that there are also others who perhaps have not even had sufficient income to even have financial reserves or invest for the long term. They're just living day by day. You recommended that we continue to give. Are there some ways, though, that we can cut back on a day-to-day basis?
Well, people who are in a difficult financial circumstance right now, we're advising them to get on a crisis budget, and we've created a free resource for them at our website, crown.org, and we instruct people how to manage their resources during a crisis, especially if they've gone into it unprepared. There is a way to live on a budget. There is a way to continue to give and save as the Bible instructs us, and it will form some disciplines and some habits that will prove to be helpful to you the rest of your life. So if you're in pain right now, obviously it's time to cut back even more than maybe 25% so that you can save more. It's time to really buckle down and save as much as you can so that you're not in a situation where you're constantly creating more and more debt. We've seen people contact us and find resources that help them through this. And we're helping people to get back on their feet, Hank, which has been a wonderful blessing for our ministry to be able to do that.
You were talking about not accumulating more debt. Just to be very direct about that, would you say simply don't spend money that you don't have?
Well, that's a good way to say it. I like to say that I grew up playing a little game called limbo. We would put a broomstick or something between two bars and have to bend down and get under that bar. And essentially, that bar represents our income. And no matter what your income is, you have to be able to limbo underneath it, because if you don't, you knock the bar off and you have to start over. And for some people, that bar is pretty low and it takes some real flexibility. For others, it's a little bit higher and more comfortable. But the main thing is you limbo underneath your income so that you keep your expenses below your income at all times. And that will reduce stress. It creates more generosity in your life. It frees you up to be able to give without fear. And it's what the Lord recommends to all of his people, because we're to be the ones who live prepared to help others, not simply to live day to day.
We're talking with Chuck Bentley, Chief Executive Officer of Crown Financial Ministries, here on Weekend Connection at the Bible Broadcasting Network. Now, Chuck, during even the best of times, there are unscrupulous people, unfortunately. I don't know if it's any different now during this time when we are vulnerable, but should we look out for people who are trying to take advantage of us financially, maybe calling us up on the phone and offering great deals? What can you say about that?
I say yes, 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 Hank. It's been terrible. In fact, even people now are calling and saying they're with the IRS and you've got a refund and they can help you get it, or your taxes are being demanded of you. All of those things are happening, and we're trying to help believers to be very discerning. A couple of simple things. Number one, just don't respond to anybody that you really don't know who they are. If they claim to be an authority or with somebody official, double verify. Look long and hard before you give out any information to anyone who's calling you or emailing you. Normally, you can look it up online and find out that this is an identified scam that you can easily avoid. Secondly, protect your identity during these times. Be very careful what you're sharing, even on social media. And even charities are pretending to be charities. People are calling and asking for donations when they're not really legitimate organizations. So that's a great point. Let's beware. Let's be wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove.
But again, one of your points, one of your 7 points, to be generous, to give. Now, we don't want people to forget that their churches, their local houses of worship still have expenses. And maybe we can think about more creative ways to give, like giving online and things like that. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I recommend that you give where you've always been giving, where the sources are that you know the organizations, you trust them, they're people who have been a blessing in your life, or you know that they're blessing other people. It's not necessarily a time to give to an organization just because they pop up overnight and say they're helping people in a new way. I think that obviously giving online is one way to do it. I think automatic with bank drafts for your church giving is a good idea right now if you're not comfortable giving online. I've read that about 50% of churches say their giving has declined. And of course, that's our highest priority, is to keep the church healthy so it can do the job that God intended for it to do. And then those ministries where you're being blessed, where you're being fed, where you know they're doing the good work that Christ called them to do, be sure and remember them. I read an article just yesterday that many not-for-profits are suffering because they're sort of out of sight, out of mind right now. And so I would encourage the listeners to remember those organizations that have been a blessing to you and continue your support.
Chuck Bentley from Crown Financial Ministries. Chuck, we have just a couple of minutes left. If you will, in closing, just remind us again what Crown Financial Ministries can do to help us in this process, and how can we contact you?
Well, since 1976, when Larry Burkett started the ministry, we've been helping believers manage their money God's way. We help folks solve personal finance problems. We teach them God's principles that are enduring and timeless, whether in a crisis or out of a crisis. We have tools to help them get reemployed. We have career tools. We have free resources, whether it's a crisis budget or getting out of debt. All of those things are available online. We've created a website called crown.org. So our purpose is to help God's people to thrive, to be good stewards, and we're doing all we can to do that right now, Hank.
Well, thank you very much, Chuck. We've been talking today with Chuck Bentley, Crown Financial Ministries. He's the CEO there, and you also hear him regularly on My Money Life here on BBN. Chuck, thank you. God bless you. We appreciate your insight. Have a good day, okay?
Thank you, Hank, and God bless BBN.
Thank you for listening to this feature, a production of BBN, the Bible Broadcasting Network. BBN provides 24-hour Christian programming, great Christian music, and Bible teaching. Listen to BBN by clicking the link in the description.